Whichford Pottery was founded by my father and mother in 1976 in a little village called Middle Barton. Everything is handmade. We try and employ local people. At Whichford, we are focused on trying to retain that traditional way of passing on skills and creating a community from which many different people can benefit, as well as exporting a lot of what we do abroad to Japan and to the United States and various other places. We also supply lots of different individual National Trust properties, and that might be replicas, so we might replicate historic pots that they have in their gardens. We also supply people like Kew Gardens and Highgrove, the Royal Horticultural Society. In our repertoire we have probably thousands of pots at this point. One of the pots I make is an Alibaba jar, which is a two-piece pot. So to throw the Alibaba jar, I take 2 lumps of clay. The base section is £45 and the top section is £35. To begin with, I will throw the bases. I would usually throw a series, so I might throw half a dozen or a dozen base sections. I will then stiffen them with a blowtorch. I will then throw the top section, stiffen that. I will then score the joint of both sections. I will apply some squibber, which is a glue essentially, a wetter clay for the stickiness. And I will then, with 2 ribs, one on the inside and one on the outside, I will throw the form into the pot. I will then wet the rim with the sponge and continue to throw that until I'm happy with the shape. The technique that we use to throw is very important. So the clay we use, we've prepared ourselves from raw. It's a lovely clay to throw, but it doesn't like being overworked. So we would never put in more than 3 pulls, as we call them. So you centre the clay, you open up, you have your first pull, your second pull and your third pull, and then a rib. And in fact, very often when I'm making a joined pot, I will only put 2 pulls in, because that will allow enough clay at the bottom attached to the bat to form a good size, nicely proportioned rim. So once I've thrown the base section, I will throw the top section, but the top section is thrown upside down, so the rim is joined to the bat. I will then stiffen the clay, score the joint of both sections. I will apply some squibber, which is a glue essentially, a wetter clay, and then invert or turn upside down that section and apply it to the base section. And I will then wire the bat off so that I can then insert my arm inside the pot and use the rib on the outside and the inside. This method of making handles is throwing them. So I learnt the process in a pottery called Cluscla in southern France, and it's extremely efficient. So it's more efficient than an extruder, it's more efficient than pulling them, and the technique is to throw a cylinder essentially, a reasonably thick, even cylinder, At the top of the cylinder you create the profile of your handle, and you create the profile, but you have to bear in mind that the handle is going to be stretched, so you throw it thicker than you need it. So once you've created your rim or your profile of your handle on the rim, you then thin slightly underneath with your fingered nail. I will then take a needle and at a roughly 45-degree angle I will cut loose the rim. So I'll push the needle through to my finger on the inside of the cylinder. I will then put my right thumb on the inside of the rim, and I will lift that rim and drop it over the cylinder and slip my fingers between the two sections now, so the rim and the cylinder, and I will stretch it out as the wheel rotates. You stretch it out and then you will snap it and have 3/4 of a metre of handles. So when I'm joining handles, I would rarely score. I prefer to use the clay when it's soft enough that there's no real need. The clay's sticky enough to stick, simple as that. Essentially I'll just slap the top of the handle that will be attached with my fingertips, and then I will, with some pressure, apply it to the rim or the portion of the pot that I will want the handle to spring from. What's nice about handmade objects is being able to read the process. So, you know, if someone's sponged round their handle, I don't really appreciate it, because I like to see the marks left by the potter's deft hand. In two motions, one to the right, one to the left. I'll then usually, with the back of my thumb, do one in the middle, and then I will press my thumb in. And I might then just very quickly run my finger over a sharp edge if I've got a sharp edge left. So for me, making pots, especially throwing production ware, it's a really nice thing to be able to do, to lose yourself in. So it's a bit like going for a walk. You know, you know where you're going, but it's always slightly different, and you enjoy it because you're able to look around, observe, and immerse yourself in that motion, in the rhythm and the pace. And that's what I really enjoy.